The dark scandal of Fredegund, when the Queen's secrets haunt forever at 3 am in the heart of a crumbling castle, where time had forgotten to tick, a bone-chilling silence blanketed the darkened halls. When the clock struck 3, the air shimmered with secrets that had festered for centuries. Tonight, shadows danced like phantoms under the flickering candles. They whispered of betrayals, bloodlines, and a queen whose secrets were buried beneath layers of deception. Fredegund, the infamous queen of the Franks, had long been a figure of fascination, a woman who might have ruled from a throne of riddles, cloaked in the guise of elegance and intrigue. But as the witching hour drew near, tales of her sinister past edged into the present like a creeping fog. Beyond the cobwebs and dust, fragments of whispers leaked from the walls. The rumors weren't just idle gossip. They spoke of hidden chambers filled with the treasures of fallen foes. Some claimed that Fredegund summoned the spirits of her enemies, her eyes glinting with the thrill of power. What if she never left? What if she roamed the castle still, lost in a haze of her own making, her icy fingers brushing against the very hearts of those now living? A heavy dread settled over the air, thick enough to choke a man. It was said that if you dared to walk these haunted halls alone, you might hear her desperate cries echoing off the stone. But what really sealed the doom of anyone who dared to uncover her truth? Legends spoke of an ancient tome hidden within the castle's dark recesses, a book filled with the lifeblood of her vicious reign. It was said to contain spells of resurrection and vengeance, each inked in blood. One must only utter her name at the stroke of midnight to summon Fredegund's ghostly visage. The townsfolk warned each other of this cursed spell, tossing wary glances toward the castle. Yet the lure of the unknown pulled at the bravest hearts. Surely, someone would step into the shadows, craving answers to questions best left buried. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And so, as the wind howled and the branches scratched against the windows, a figure emerged, a reckless soul hungry for the truth. With trembling hands, they pushed open the castle door, the ancient wood creaking in protest. Would they uncover Fredegund's dark heritage, or would they become just another victim of the Queen's eternal grasp? The pivotal moment hovered in the air like a storm cloud, threatening to burst at any second. What awaited them inside those cursed walls would change everything. The heavy door swung inward with a groan that echoed like the cries of the damned. A chill swept over the figure stepping inside, sending an involuntary shiver down their spine. The flickering candlelight barely pierced the gloom, casting long shadows that twisted and turned like anxious specters. Taking a deep breath, they stepped farther into the darkness, heart racing as anticipation mixed with dread. Every creak of the floorboards underfoot echoed through the castle, sounding like whispered warnings, urging them to turn back. Yet, with each step, they felt an inexplicable draw to the secrets lurking in the corners. Was it wisdom they sought, or a fate that was already sealed? They glanced around, the weight of history heavy in the air. Every stone, every dusty beam seemed to bear witness to tragedies long gone. A sudden chill swept through the room, causing the flickering flames to dance wildly. Instinctively they stepped back, voice trembling as they called, "Fredegund, are you here?" The name barely left their lips before the air thickened, suffocating, electric. A pause, then a rustle echoed from the walls, like a breath drawn from a long-forgotten source. Their pulse quickened. Was the Queen herself responding? Shadows seemed to swell along the stone walls, moving with a life of their own. They pressed on, guided by desperation, and finally spotted a staircase winding downward. It beckoned like an abyss, dark and tantalizing. The stories of the hidden tomes surged in their mind, a siren-esque call promising unholy knowledge. Each step taken downwards felt akin to traversing deeper into hell, where whispers of betrayal and bloodlust curled around them like smoke. The air grew damp and cold, thickening until it felt like breathing through layers of fabric. The descent was slow and measured, fear gripping their throat harder with each creak of the steps. At last, the narrow passage opened into a vast chamber, but the sight that met their eyes froze them in place. It was covered in twisted relics and fragments of lives once lived, broken swords, faded garments, jars of shadowy substances that seemed to hum with a sinister pulse. But it was the altar in the center that captured their gaze. Ancient and formidable, it cradled a dusty, ornate tome, bound in cracked leather and stained pages. Tentatively, they approached, their breath hitching at the sight of the book. It pulsed with a strange energy, beckoning. As they reached out, the ground trembled slightly, sending vibrations rippling beneath their feet. A feeling of dread washed over them, but curiosity was a poison they couldn't resist what had Fredegund left behind. "No!" A voice echoed from the depths, booming like thunder. It chilled the very marrow in their bones. They whipped around, eyes wide, scanning for the source. Shadows converged, coiling around the walls like nightmarish tendrils. The whispers grew louder, rising into frantic echoes, all tugging at their mind. "Leave! You cannot survive what has been awakened." But the call of secrets too alluring to abandon gripped their heart. They turned back to the tome, uncertainty coiling within, as darkness loomed closer. Would they unleash a curse they couldn't contain? Was the truth worth the price of their soul? As a sharp sound cracked through the air, a shattering noise, a chilling laugh echoed through the chamber, sealing their fate. The night, still young and volatile, held more horrors than they could ever imagine. Each heartbeat drummed louder against the impending storm. And then, the lights flickered out, plunging everything into total darkness. What happened next would forever change the fate of the castle, and the one who dared to defy its secrets. The darkness wrapped around them like a suffocating shroud. Heart pounding, breath ragged, they swung their head from side to side, desperate for even a hint of illumination. The laughter, haunting and malicious, seemed to linger in the air, echoing against the cold stone walls, twisting into a sinister melody that made their skin crawl. "Fredegund!" They shouted again, voice shaky, feeling more like a supplication than a demand. No answer came, only the weight of silence pressing down, so thick it felt unnatural. Each moment in the dark felt elongated, as if time itself was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. And then, a flicker, a small spark of light appeared in the corner of the room. It wavered at first, but then grew stronger, casting an eerie glow that highlighted the grotesque relics scattered about like forsaken memories. For a fleeting second, hope flared until it revealed the source. Eyes widened, they backed away, heart racing. The shadows, now tangible, took form in the shape of a figure all smoke and despair. It was a woman, ghostly pale, with eyes that burned like embers. "You shouldn't have come here," she rasped, her voice like jagged glass. "You have awakened what was meant to remain asleep." "Who are you?" they managed, trembling. "Fredegund's past," she replied, her presence growing bolder, feeding on their fear. "I am all that lingered after the betrayal, and now, I must protect the truth." Protection? It felt more like a threat. The figure glided closer, as if drawn by their fear, her gaze piercing through the darkness. "Foolish seeker! You must not touch the tome. It holds more than mere words, it binds souls. To read it is to invite chaos into your own existence." Something tightened in their chest, like a vice closing around their heart. "I need to know!" they shouted, desperate. What did she hide? "Knowledge often comes with a price," the spectral figure warned, her voice swirling through the chamber like a melancholy breeze. "And you cannot pay it." Everything inside them rebelled at her words. Shadows began to shift violently, coiling around their ankles as if taunting them to move. They could feel the darkness clawing at their mind, whispering promises of power and understanding, drowning out Fredegund's ghost. "No!" they cried, falling into confusion. "Then choose," Fredegund's voice insisted, hovering between the lines of reality. "Choose life or knowledge." With shaking hands, they reached toward the tome, feeling its ancient energy coursing through the air like an electric current, singing in a tone far darker than their consciousness could bear. The flickering light revealed more relics. They felt like witnesses to tragedies long past, as if they were on the precipice of awakening the worst of history. The moment their fingers brushed the cover, a surge of energy exploded through the chamber, a vortex of light and shadow clashing violently. The scream that punctuated the chaos was theirs, mingled with the echoing laughter, spinning and swirling until the world turned upside down. Abruptly, the light extinguished, leaving them enveloped in isolation once more. But this time, the darkness did not feel empty. It pulsed. It breathed. A chilling realization settled like ice in their veins. Whatever lay ahead, there would be no turning back. The lines of the past and future had blurred. As the darkness curled tighter around them, a new voice emerged from the depths, low and guttural. "You've awakened my siblings, and we thirst for retribution." What had been unleashed? In the endless black, adrenaline surged as they grappled with an undeniable truth: they were not alone. Something ancient and formidable roamed freely, and it wanted more than mere activation of old spells. Now, the night truly begins. What would they become in the face of this looming terror? Would they rise against the darkness, or succumb to its chilling allure? They stumbled backward, breathless, grappling with the disorienting rush of shadows swirling around them. The air itself felt heavy, like an uninvited weight pressing upon their chest. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet an unyielding curiosity rooted them in place. Behind that raspy voice lay truths tangled in history and pained secrets of a queen long forgotten. "Retribution?" they whispered, the word hanging in the air, dark and potent. From the depths, the voice continued, a low growl wrapped in malice. "Yes, little seeker. The tome's power has awakened those who swore vengeance. You think to learn from the past, yet it is the past that intends to devour you." A flicker of hope ignited, but it was quickly extinguished by the breath of a cold wind that swept through the chamber, chilling them to their core. Panic tightened their throat, causing only a strangled gasp to escape. "Who are you?" they managed to croak out, hoping beyond hope for clarity in the chaos. "We are the echoes, the remnants of those betrayed," the voice replied, and they could feel the shadows shift, merging into an unknown form that pulsed with dark energy. "We were princes and warriors, poets and dreamers, and now, we are nothing but whispers of retribution. You've opened the portal, foolishly inviting us back." Each word seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet, vibrating like a distant thunder. With the vividness of that chilling tone, they could almost visualize the tortured faces of those bound to linger, their desires curling into dark promises. "What do you want from me?" The question hung like a noose in the silent void, taunting them as they struggled to grasp the reality. "We want what was taken," the resonance of a distant voice rang. "We want justice for the Queen's betrayal. And now you shall be our vessel." With that, the shadows surged forward, tendrils reaching out toward them like grasping hands. They felt cold, clammy fingers brush against their skin, sending jolts of terror pulsating throughout their body. Panic propelled them into motion. They bolted towards the doorway, but the weight of the shadows tugged mercilessly at their legs, holding them in an agonizing grip. "No! You've chosen our fate!" the voice roared, shaking the walls around them. "You shall not escape! Return the tome, or suffer the consequences." As their heart thundered violently in their chests, desperation fueled a surge of energy. With all the force they could muster, they tore their hand free from the icy clutches. The tome! Thoughts raced. What would happen if they relinquished it? But there was no time for questions as visions of burning eyes and ghastly faces invaded their mind, etching horror deeper into their soul. "Get back!" they screamed, wielding the tome like a shield. A sudden silence hung, thick and choking. The shadows seemed to hesitate, giving them a moment of pause, a flicker of hope amid the despair. But hope flickered like a dying flame, and a sense of foreboding loomed. Even in this moment's reprieve, the shadows whispered incessantly, promising more than fear, tempting them with the power that lay between the pages of that accursed tome. "Foolish one," the voices hissed serenely, "choose your path wisely. Our hunger is insatiable, and failure will surely seal your fate." They staggered backward, heart pounding. What lay on the other side of that dark doorway? Would they embrace the sinister allure of power, facing the wrath of awakened vengeful spirits? In that moment, they realized the choice laid before them was not merely between life or knowledge. It was a decision echoing with consequences larger than themselves. What awaited them once they crossed that threshold, back into the tangible world? A final decision loomed, heavy as the darkness itself. Would they return to the surface, allowing the shadows to fester in the depths, or would they harness the knowledge and risk everything? The very air thrummed with impending doom as they prepared to take a step into either salvation or damnation. And then, from the darkness, an answer echoed back loud and clear, awaiting their choice. Would they dare to know what lay beyond? The tome pulsed in their hand, a living entity thrumming with chaotic energy. Shadows crawled closer, snaking around their legs like serpents poised to strike. The weight of centuries of wrath pressed heavier against their chest, and their thoughts spun. What if they didn't run? What if confronting the darkness was the only path to understanding? Return the tome! Screamed the voices again, clarity sharpening the command as their icy grip tightened. Fear clawed at their insides while confusion twisted into a razor-sharp pang of defiance. They stepped backward, their heart hammering against their ribcage like a drum, splashing adrenaline through their veins. No! They shouted, whether to the shadows, to the voices, or to themselves, they didn't know. I wouldn't let you use me. The shadows recoiled, seething in frustration. Someone had made them promises, stories whispered about vengeance and reclamation. But now they were staring at a living manifest of rage, and this seeker began to realize that perhaps it was their own life on the line sooner than they thought. In that moment of desperation, visions of crowded marketplaces, joyful celebrations, and a queen once adored flickered before their eyes. Fredegund, a name once engraved in history, now tangled with the darkness. Betrayal boiled in the edges of their memory like an angry storm, and they clutched the tome tighter, feeling its pulse synchronize with their racing heart. Justice! They replied, clenching their jaw, feeling the heat of anger rise. Is that what you want? Justice? Yes. The response came like an echo, rising with renewed fervor, every whisper converging into a single, unrelenting demand. Justice for Fredegund. Reclaim her throne. But would bowing to this malevolence lead to justice, or simply a cycle of suffering? The shadows morphed with their every thought, encircling them and themselves. A chill wrapped around their skin, sending tremors coursing through their body. Suddenly, out of the depth of suffocating darkness, an image materialized. Fredegund, not as the vengeful spectre the volumes had described, but a woman exuding fierce beauty and quiet strength. Her voice chimed through the sinister atmosphere, clear and haunting. Seeker, do not fear what I became, seek not the revenge, but the truth. The shadows trembled at her name, and doubts seeped into their heart. Could they trust this figure woven into fabric and time? Was there still humanity buried beneath the rage? What truth? They asked, voice halting but resolute. Learn the Queen's pain, she echoed back through layers of shadows. Only then can balance be restored. The shadows recoiled, shadows whispering fiercely now, a dance of anger as her presence began to disrupt the darkness. You tread too close to the flame. Do not listen. The echoes of discontent enveloped them, screaming of consequences, of the chaos that awaited if they dared to embrace the truth. Let me see! They yelled against the tide of anger sweeping around them. And as those words hung in the air, a flash of light exploded from the tome, bright and searing. The shadows jerked, contorting like wild animals caught off guard. Then darkness retreated as if pushed away by an unseen force. A sliver of clarity pierced through a vision, a memory, perhaps the truth. Fredegund extended her hand, moving closer, regal and full of sorrow. But shadows whispered warnings, laughing darkly. You think to break the cycle? It will claim you. Then so be it, they cried, stepping onto the edge of their own uncertainty. In that heartbeat, they made their choice, to uncover the hidden truth and face whatever lay beyond the abyss of secrets. Chapter by chapter, this path would lead them deeper into chaos, and yet through the darkness, a flicker of light teased at the corner of their vision. But with every step into this truth, how much of themselves would they have to sacrifice? What awaited them when they finally embraced the weight of Fredegund's fate? As they made their decision, the tome burned in their hands, its light pulsing like a heartbeat, desperate and pleading. Would they grasp it or let it slip away forever? The air thickened again, whispers swirling as the ground beneath them began to tremble once more. A choice loomed at the edge of darkness, one that could shift the balance between vengeance and truth forever. And just then, the walls of the chamber shook violently. The chamber rattled, dust falling like rain from the ceiling as panic surged through their body. Each tremor of the ground threatened to toss them backwards into the encroaching darkness. The tome in their hands pulsed violently, its light flickering, urging them to embrace what was being offered. Fredegund! They shouted, though the name felt foreign, like a whisper in an endless void. I want to know your truth. The shadows seemed to howl at their defiance, a swirling tide of furious whispers that clawed at their sanity. You dare address her? They taunted, voices mingling in a cacophony. You cannot bear the weight of her secrets. But they stood their ground, heart racing like a wild horse. The plea felt powerful, a cry for understanding that reached beyond fear. And suddenly, the air's shifted tension thickened, and all sounds died down, as if holding its breath. In the moment of stillness, the light surged from the tome until the chamber flooded with a bright, illuminating glow. It filled the space around them, refracting off the stone walls, banishing the shadows like retreating fog. Visions sprouted from the light, fragments of history, flashes of betrayal unraveling Fredegund's story before their eyes, battles fought under blood-red skies, her throne room, regal and towering, now standing empty, echoing her profound loneliness. A father's cruel ambition that led to her rise, but also to her undoing. Her heart, it seemed, had been trapped between power and love, and each choice bore a darker consequence than the last. See her truth, Fredegund's voice echoed, resonating more clearly. See what was taken and what I sacrificed. Their chests tightened as they felt the weight of Fredegund's anguish, an ache that reverberated within them, as if every painful decision she made clawed at their own soul. As if unraveling a beautiful tapestry only to discover the frayed edges and hidden stains insufficiently washed out. In the glow, they glimpsed her, not just a queen but a woman twisted by the cruel grasp of fate, seeking revenge while being consumed by it. Glimmers of surrounding shadows flickered, itching closer, voices rising in panic. No! You mustn't TC! Return the tome. Why? They challenged, fists clenched around the tome, feeling its energy spark against their skin. What do you fear? That I might break the cycle? The shadows faltered, their grip tightening in confusion. For a heartbeat they hesitated, the whisper of doubt threading through their angry cacophony. Yes, the whispers hissed again, now tinged with desperation. The cycle must remain, it is our lifeblood. Without it, we perish. Then so be it. They shot back, voice loud and steady. Let me collapse this cycle. Let me free you all. The ground quaked beneath them, the echoes of the shadows rising in a furious uproar. A searing pain shot through their hands, coursing from the tome and deep into their bloodstream, where it ignited a fire of determination. Suddenly, with a blinding flash, memory collided against consciousness. All the betrayal, the blood, the love twisted into darkness. Each piece snapped together in a beautiful yet horrifying mosaic of Fredegund's life, and they felt her raw sorrow descend like a shroud. Then came the pull, a magnetic force drawing them deeper into the blaze of the truth, the shadows screeching frantically, losing their grip. And just as they began to understand the full weight of Fredegund's sacrifice, the chamber shook violently again, but with a new urgency. The walls cracked and creaked, threatening to collapse entirely as a deep voice bellowed from the depths of shadow. Fool! You will regret this choice. You cannot hope to wield what you do not understand. In that moment the light from the tome flared up, almost as if responding to the warning. What direction would they take? Would they plunge into the depths of Fredegund's painful truth, risking everything? The shadows screamed, now alive with malevolence, clawing at their sanity. They stood on the precipice of revelation, one step away from breaking the chains of a curse that had held a kingdom captive for centuries. But they couldn't turn back now. As the last tremors echoed through the chamber, a dark figure began to form in the shadows, its eyes alight with malice. Come, it beckoned, voice dripping with deceit, Let me show you a fate deadlier than your imagination. What new terrors lay ahead? Would they be able to withstand the emerging darkness, or was it too late to reclaim their quest for truth? The air crackled with tension, alive with foreboding. They felt it in the way the shadows writhed and twisted, coiling around them like a suffocating fog. The dark figure stepped closer, its form shifting, only half-formed, as if crafted from nightmares. "What is your name?" It sneered, words dripping like poison. "You wish to unravel a queen's fate, but do you even know your own?" They clenched their teeth, a sudden wave of defiance igniting their spirit. "I am not afraid of you. I am not afraid of what lies within this tome." The figure laughed, a sound hollow and mirthless, reverberating around them, sending chills racing down their spine. "Ah, but fear is the very essence of your journey. It's what will keep you tethered to the shadows." The ground quaked again, almost as if the chamber itself were protesting their intent. Cracks spiderwebbed across the stone, and dust billowed in thick clouds, obscuring the luminous glow of the tome. But the light didn't falter. It pushed back with a fierce brilliance, illuminating the twisted visage of the dark figure and casting every corner of the chamber into stark relief. "Your foolish courage will be your undoing," the figure hissed, advancing slowly, its presence suffocating. "You cannot hope to rewrite history without consequence. Fredegund's truth is shackled to a dance of blood and betrayal, and you will be trapped within it." "No!" they shouted, shaking their head defiantly. "I'm breaking the cycle. I refuse to accept the pain. I will expose the truth and free her. Free all of you." The darkness writhed in response, convulsing as if in agony. "The truth?" it taunted, eyes glowing brighter, revealing depths of twisted knowledge. "It will consume you like it consumed her. Do you not see? Freedom is merely an illusion, a thin thread woven into despair." As the words slithered into their mind, the memories from the tome surged with renewed intensity. They saw Fredegund's desolate face, her spirit fractured, decisions made with heavy hands, sacrifices that carved her destiny in blood. Then it struck them a horrible realization churning in their gut: freedom came at a price. The shadows seemed to pulse with anticipation. They weren't just specters, they were the echoes of those who had fought Fredegund, loved her, betrayed her. Each breath filled with the despair of unlived lives, the weight pressing harder against their chest. "Join us," the dark figure urged, extending a hand that was both inviting and repellent. "Fulfill the promise of power, of understanding. Together, we can drown the past in darkness, no longer bound by a queen's regret." A pulse raced through them, uncertainty clouding their thoughts. The tension grew thicker than the dust around them, questions clawing for answers. What power waited to be grasped? Could they truly change Fredegund's fate, or would they succumb to the same darkness? "No," they gasped, voice trembling against their defiance. "I will find the way, even if it means facing the truth of my own fears. If I must walk the path of pain to free her, then I will." With that declaration, the tome blazed hotter, an inferno of light that momentarily banished the shadows, glowing brighter with their resolve. The whispers turned to wails, crashing against the walls like a tempest. They could feel Fredegund's spirit rise within them, igniting with fervor against the encroaching darkness. The ground shook violently, sending them sprawling to the floor. Above, jagged stones cracked loose, threatening to fall. The dark figure roared in rage, fluttering in and out of form, losing its cohesion, but not its wickedness. "Foolish mortal!" it bellowed. "You cannot escape your destiny. You will fall, as she did." As the chamber began to collapse, they fought to stand, shaking off debris, eyes locked onto the glowing tome. Their heart pounded, each beat was a countdown to a choice that could shatter everything or present a glimmer of salvation. In that chaotic moment, a corridor of blinding white light opened behind them, beckoning with an ethereal pull. Should they leap into the light and face whatever awaited, or stay rooted, knee-deep in darkness, wrestling with the shadows that clung like chains? The figure lunged forward, its last desperate attempt to drag them back into despair. Would they turn and run into the unknown, or cling to the aching truth, no matter the cost? With a final determined breath, they launched themselves toward the light, a simultaneous scream echoing through the chamber, an anthem of hope mixed with unyielding fear. What would they find on the other side? Would the light engulf them or reveal the truth hidden in the darkness? The light swallowed them whole, a warm embrace that felt like freedom and fire all at once. They closed their eyes against the blinding brilliance, momentarily forgetting the turmoil left behind in the collapsing chamber. The darkness, with its chilling whispers, was gone. Instead, they felt weightless, as if floating between worlds. Then, just as suddenly, the sensation shifted. A hard jolt pressed them down, and they landed unceremoniously on cold cobblestone. Groaning, they opened their eyes, heart racing. Was this the other side? The air was thick with an oppressive silence, pierced only by the distant echo of dripping water. Looking around, confusion seeped through their chest. They stood in what seemed like a dimly lit hallway, ancient stone walls covered in a tapestry of vines. Faint flickers of light crept in from overhead, but it felt strangely hazy, like a memory they couldn't grasp. They pushed off from the ground, shaking off the remnants of their passage, and began to walk. Each step sent tremors of dread and uncertainty coursing through them. Was they free? Or had they merely traded one prison for another? Shadows clung to the edges of their vision, whispering promises that tugged at their courage. "Where am I?" they whispered, the sound swallowed by the oppressive air. But silence was their only answer. As they wandered deeper down the corridor, the skittering sounds of something unseen sent chills down their spine. It felt alive. Heart pounding, they pressed on, walking faster as the walls seemed to close in. Suddenly, a glimmer caught their eye. A door, slightly ajar, beckoned. They hesitated, mind racing with visions of the figure's gaunt face twisted in fury. Courage surged within them as they pushed the door open, the wood creaking ominously. Inside, a flickering candle illuminated what looked like a study. Dust danced in the air, holding time still in this room, untouched and decaying. Tattered books lined the shelves, their spines cracked and fading, but one tome shimmered brighter than the rest. It was as if it pulsed with a life of its own. Something told them it was connected to their quest, could point them to the truth. But the moment they stepped forward, a shuddering voice echoed through the silence, smooth like ice yet full of malice. "You seek Fredegund's truth? Beware, you tread paths stained in blood, paths that crave new offerings." Panic surged, and they spun around, searching for the source, but found only shadows, deepening, swirling, churning. It was as if the room itself was bending, coiling around their frame, eager to crush them beneath its weight. But they wouldn't falter. "I refuse to be a pawn!" they shouted, defiance roaring in their chests. The voice laughed, but it was filled with urgency this time. "Pawns play a part far darker than they know. You may find that the greatest darkness lies not in the Queen's past, but in your own shadow." Confusion shattered their resolve. What darkness? What shadows? With a fierce breath, they reached for the shimmering tome, but the shadows lunged, stretching out fingers that seethed with resentment. They flinched, a wave of dread washing over them. "Curiosity can be deadly," the voice taunted, more tangible now. "Are you ready to pay the price?" Their fingers hovered over the tome. Could they trust it? Would delving deeper put them in an even tighter grip of despair? But freedom and truth were at stake. Taking a deep breath, they grasped the book and opened it, and once more, the world faded around them, the shadows swirling like a tempest. What dark secret would emerge? What choice awaited them on this perilous journey? Would they uncover the depth of their own shadows or become lost forever? The moment they opened the tome, the air thickened, crackling with energy. Words began to swirl, rising from the pages like mist, forming into shapes they weren't just letters but images of lives entwined in tragedy. Faces flickered, a woman with a crown, tears streaming down her cheeks, a shadowy figure lurking behind her, eyes burning with anticipation. Panicking, they stepped back, only to find that the shadows were no longer mere wisps retreating into corners. No, now they flowed freely through the air, dark tendrils weaving themselves around their legs, pulling them down to the cold cobblestone. "Let me go!" they cried, muscles straining against the suffocating grip. The voice returned, sharper now, a blade slicing through the haze. You venture where even the bravest falter. You're stepping into a realm of desperation and deceit. Will you face the truth staring back at you? Struggling against the shadows, a knot tightened in their throat. Were they prepared for the cost? The book began to pulse beneath their fingertips, urging them closer. Despite their mounting dread, curiosity mingled with fear. What was it hiding? What desperate truths lay within its pages? With a surge of adrenaline, they ripped their hand away from the grasp of shadows and slammed the book shut. The room shuddered, and the echoes of the past vanished, horrified whispers fading into silence. They caught their breath, panic subsiding. But the pressure still pressed down, heavy and sinister. Does this fight even matter? They said to the emptiness. Am I just a pawn in a game I can never win? A new voice, one softer yet laced with malice, answered. Ah, but every pawn has the potential to become something greater. In blood and choice lies the power of change. Do you aspire to break free, or will you remain a servant of fate? Every instinct screamed for them to flee, yet temptation gnawed at their resolve. Their heart raced, pounding loud enough that it echoed in their ears. They grasped the book, its spine warm against their palm, and opened it again. The pages before them shimmered, and this time they revealed a scene, a grand hall filled with laughter, but as it drew closer, the mirth turned into screams. In an instant, the banquet transformed into chaos, sharp knives and betrayal weaving among the guests. They saw Fredegund, but she was different now. Her eyes blazed with reckoning, a woman at war with herself. Guide your own hand. The voice whispered urgently, becoming a chant, rising and falling like a heartbeat. But beneath the urge to dive deeper into the story, an undeniable truth gripped them. Was Fredegund merely a reflection of themselves? Could the shadows of doom surrounding her be the very same shadows lurking in their own heart? They closed their eyes, feeling torn between uncovering the secrets of the past and confronting their own darkness. What awaited them was unknown but tantalizing. Would they find a piece of themselves among the souls lost in the echoes of history? Suddenly, the shadows began to whisper again, more fervently, scrabbling for their attention. Do you truly wish to know? You may gain wisdom or lose yourself entirely. The chill returned, swirling, and in the haze, a flicker of light beckoned, promising clarity but dripping with danger. With a lurch in their chest, they took a step toward the candlelit doorway that seemed to pulse with a heartbeat, as though calling them back to the truth. All roads were converging now, the choice lying heavily in their hands. Was it courage or folly that pushed them forward? A new truth awaited, but what awaited afterward could shatter or illuminate everything they believed about themselves. Dread coiled in their gut as they reached for the doorknob, dread merging into reckless resolve. Will you stand firm, or will you be consumed by the darkness? As the door creaked open, the shadows shrieked, echoing their fears. What awaited on the other side, salvation or doom? As the door swung open, a blinding light erupted, flooding the dim corridor. The shadows recoiled, hissing as if burned by the sudden radiance. They stumbled into the embrace of the brightness, feeling warmth seep into their bones. Suddenly the cold, suffocating dread that had been their constant companion lifted, replaced by a sensation that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Welcome, seeker of truth. The voice echoed, soft yet thunderous, resonating through the chamber. Their heart raced. There in front of them stood Fredegund herself, not a frightening spectre from tales long forgotten but a real woman, fierce and regal, her eyes sparkling with a depth of wisdom. Shadows hung at the edges but could not breach her light. I am the keeper of my own story, she said, her voice steady, and so are you. But you came seeking answers, did you not? They nodded, swallowed hard, the realization washing over them. They had feared Fredegund's legacy. But here she was, transparent and full of life, all misconceptions peeled back like layers of an onion. I want to understand why you had to betray and be betrayed. Fredegund swept her arm toward shimmering images that formed in midair, brief glimpses of her life. The laughter of court jesters became muted screams. The glittering palace shifted into shadows of treachery. To see my truth is to see pain. Betrayed by those closest, I became tangled in a web of choices that led me farther from love and closer to chaos. But is that my path too? They asked, confusion mingling with hope. Will I be lost in the same darkness, or can I break this cycle? Fredegund stepped closer. To reach the light, one must not shy from the darkness. You have faced it bravely, and in doing so, you sever ties with fear. Your choices must be your own, not solely based on the echoes of the past. The flickering visions erupted into a vibrant tapestry of colors, betrayals recast as opportunities, losses painted with strokes of resilience. Hope seemed to spring unbidden from the cacophony of confusion. Their breath caught, understanding blossoming in that vivid spectrum. I refuse to become a pawn, they murmured. Each choice can lead to redemption or despair. Embrace your truth. When you know yourself, the shadows will no longer rule you. Fredegund's voice resonated with an intensity that filled them with warmth. The shadows pulsed, now strangely silent, almost as if watching, waiting for a decision. With a fierce flicker of resolve, they raised their hand towards Fredegund. Then I will claim my path. No more fear, no more shame. I refuse to carry the burden of the past. I choose to write my own story. Light burst forth from their fingertips, mingling with Fredegund's own brilliance, igniting the darkness. Shadowy figures cringed, shrank back, rendered powerless by the strength of hope that surged around them. The echoes of the past twisted and shifted, morphing into paths untraveled, potential glimmering bright ahead. Freedom! They shouted, feeling the chains of fear shatter within their heart. As the light enveloped the chamber, the shadows dissipated into the ether, leaving nothing but a lingering touch and a whispered promise of transformation. Fredegund smiled, her presence now intertwined with the light, a beacon of truth that refused to be extinguished. You have embraced your truth, brave seeker. In this light, the past shall not haunt you, its stories will illuminate the future, guiding you. In an instant, all ill will vanish from the shadows, and they found themselves returning to the castle entrapped in silence, not the stale whisper of fear but a serene quiet filled with potential. They gazed around the familiar halls, the air charged with energy. The book lay open on the altar, not a burden but a guide. Its pages held the essence of their journey, a reminder. They felt a lift in their chest as they understood the power of storytelling. Fredegund's chaos was not theirs to repeat, but a legacy to learn from. With renewed purpose and courage, they stepped into the light streaming through castle windows, ready to share Fredegund's truth and their own. They would tell the tales of darkness but also of the transformative light that emerged, igniting hope in others. This was just the beginning. In that moment, they became both seeker and storyteller, ready to shape a new legacy, free from the grips of haunting shadows. Now, here's where you come in. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next thrilling journey we embark on together. Smash that like button to feed the ever-hungry algorithm. Let's show our support. Flood the comments section with what you thought of this conclusion. Did you expect this twist? What does freedom mean to you? And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how stories can shape our reality. Let us keep this community alive and ready for more.